Well, hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of Amazing Life with Angela. I am Angela Court McKenzie saying hello and coming to you from Scotland. The picture you saw right before we started is of our backyard. I'm coming to you from my home in Scotland, and I want to say hello to all my friends. What you saw there was spring, but now when I'm coming to you, the snow has fallen and it's beautiful and white, and snow is everywhere on the ground. And so I pray wherever you are that you're doing good. You know, I talked to my son yesterday, Michael, and he is out west, out in the desert in Las Vegas area. And he said, Mom, it snowed here too. So I'm like, it snowed in Vegas? He said, yes, about that much, about a half an inch. So trust you are staying in good spirits during these times, and know that the Lord loves you and that we have brought a message of redemption and joy in all things. And that's easy to say, but quite a unique thing to work out and walk out. But my guest today, oh my, you're going to want to stay for the whole program. Linda Markowitz is a dear friend of my family's, of the ministry, and really of anyone who meets her. She has such a warm heart and has walked through severe tragedy. Yet she is walking out one of the best testimonies of forgiveness and reconciliation that I have personally ever known. And she's written a book called I Find No Fault, The Liberating Power of Forgiveness. And I've asked her to come on and share her story. And she's going to join us in just a moment. But I want to give you a chance to say, if you're watching on the Super Channel, hello, dear Super Channel friends, we love you. And if you're watching on social media, listen, go into the chat box. If you're on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, say hello. Let us know who's watching and where you're watching from. And I would encourage you all to hit share, share, share. This is a program. This is a lady with a message. I think we need to all do our part to help get out, because the world is longing for forgiveness and peace, and it really only comes through Christ. But it is displayed not only through Christ and his love, but through those who love him and therefore share that love with others. And that is the story of my guest today. So I want to welcome to the program a dear friend, a wonderful woman of God. Please welcome Linda Markowitz.
Hello, Angela. Thank you for having me today.
Well, thank you for joining us. And you were there in Orlando. Nice and
Yes,
sunny, I hear. And I'm
yes.
here in Scotland with the snow.
The snow might be refreshing.
Yeah. Linda, I'm glad you're with us. Thank you for coming. Again, you've written a book called I Find No Fault. What your family, what you have gone through in the last 25 years has been dramatic, tragic, and yet inspirational, because really you have chosen God's path of forgiveness. So I want you to share that story about your daughter, Michelle, and Ray and the whole thing. But also, I want them to know a little bit about you. Tell us about your childhood and what was it like for you growing up?
Interesting childhood, actually, Angela. Thank you. My mother died when I was 5 years old, and I am the oldest of three children. And my father was an over-the-road truck driver, so in that time frame, my father took us to live with my aunt and her two children. And that was supposed to be a really good deal, but it really wasn't a really good deal, because my aunt was an alcoholic, a severe alcoholic. And so I sort of became the mom. Not only, I was the oldest of all five of us, my two cousins, my two siblings, I was the oldest. So I sort of became the mom, and that became a little rough. I learned to be a survivor really quick, and it really put a foundation in my life for being able to go through hardship and just find a way out, just find a way out. And then I grew up, of course, married, had my two daughters. I had two daughters, and divorced. And that was another real troubling time in my life. But I was always founded and grounded in knowing that there was a better way, a much better way, even though I didn't know Jesus at that time. I was not
What
saved at
was
that
it
time.
like with your dad traveling for work to provide for the family? You're with somebody else. Did church or the faith, anything like that ever be a part of your life?
None whatsoever. Not at all. None of our family was saved. None of our family were churchgoers. And so it was me and just this God. It was, looking back, it's a God-given gift of being able to find a way out. And so I learned how to do that without Jesus. And then when I learned I could do it with Jesus, it just put that whole thing on steroids for me.
Yeah, yeah. So you were stepping into the role as a young girl of an adult role, that of mom, with your dad traveling, your mother had passed, your aunt's an alcoholic. These are, and then no real Christian influence, and got married and children, and then um, you said that the divorce brought a number of just wounds to your children, especially your daughter Michelle. Tell us about Michelle.
Well, Michelle's the youngest of my two daughters. I have an older daughter, Marcy, who lives in Indiana, and I have Michelle, the younger one, who is now in heaven. And both girls were very different in their personalities. Marcy was much more resilient. She was much more like myself. She was a survivor. Michelle was very needy and lost, and she really missed her dad. She started failing in school. Things went out of order. Her life just really spiraled. She never recovered from that divorce. I saw a picture there of myself and Michelle. Yeah, that's a sweet, sweet,
And
sweet
that was the
memory.
last time you saw her 25 years ago.
Correct, correct. It was a Mother's Day. It was Mother's Day, and boy, goodness, that day is forever etched in my memory. It was a wonderful day, actually. It wasn't a sad day. It was a good day. It was a wonderful day. So my last memory of face-to-face with her was a really, really good day. Look at that, all that hair. Goodness, 25 years can do a lot. That's sort of cool. That's cool.
Yeah, so that was a happy Mother's Day. Thankfully, you have good memories with her.
Yes.
But soon after, her life was taken through gun violence. What happened?
Yeah. Yeah, she was living with her boyfriend, who was with us on that particular Mother's Day. He was a part of that event that day. He was with us. I had met him that day for the second time. I'd met him once before, and only knew him in those two events. But a month later, yeah, I see you picture here. This is Michelle with her boyfriend, Ray. And
Yeah.
a month later, they had a huge fight that ultimately ended in her taking off and leaving him abandoned at a party. And he found a way home and ultimately waited for her. And when she came home, he shot her to death. Even now, 25 years later, just saying those words are still hard words to say. They're still hard words to say.
They are hard.
Mm-hmm.
They're hard. We'll always remember her, and well, I look forward to meeting her in heaven someday.
Yeah,
She
me.
had come to know Christ.
Yes, she
That's
had.
the hope, though, there, isn't it?
Yes, yes, yes. I had drug her to church, basically, made her go to church more than once. And I went to the Orlando Christian Center, and I actually have a video of Pastor Benny Hinn leading her to the Lord. And that's a treasure beyond wealth to me. I know she made heaven, so that's good.
Yeah, that's very good. If you don't mind, let's though go back to sadly that I guess it was just an act of jealous rage,
It was.
and he had a gun, and in that moment she walked through the door and he met her with the gun.
The way that I understand it happened, she was in the house for probably 20 minutes and they were fighting. He was angry. He'd been doing quite a bit of drugs from the time that she left him at the party, and he had to find his way home, and been drinking, and he was really, really overloaded on all kinds of amphetamines and drugs, illegal drugs. And he just pulled a gun, and when she just said, I don't even know, when he doesn't even remember what she said, that was that last moment, but he did pull the trigger. He did shoot her, and it was great rage. He actually shot her 28 times, and he had to reload to do that. And that is beyond belief. It was years and years and years before I knew that detail. I'm glad I didn't know it in the very beginning. I was already dealing with so much grief when I found out that this had happened. But he was filled with drugs and demons and rage, absolutely, and took her life.
When you received the phone call about Michelle, and in that moment, a mother hears what no parent ever wants to hear. Can you tell us? Your book is remarkable in the story that you said you feel like the Lord had been kind of preparing you. You had been praying extra. You've been really just drawing close to the Lord extra, and that had given you a strength. Share a kind of take us back to that day, if you don't mind, and share with us kind of what did you have to do to get through it. You talked about being a survivor. How did you survive that day?
Yeah, it was a tough day. I got the call on a Monday. Um, Michelle died shortly after midnight, Sunday night, Monday morning, and it was about 7 p.m. Monday, 7 p.m. Monday. And I was in Port St. Lucie. I had been staying with friends and ministering at their church. I was in ministry then, just as I am now, and I had spent an extra day Monday and was planning to spend the night Monday night. We were friends, and we were just hanging out. We'd been shopping that day. We'd had a great day together, but all day long, I knew that I was praying for something. I pray in tongues pretty incessantly. That's something that was instilled in me at my salvation experience, and I do that to this day. I almost am 100% of the time praying in tongues when I'm not eating or speaking. And I was doing that, and I was very aware that day that I was praying more than usual. But I didn't know what I was praying for, had no idea. And by the time that prayer assignment began in me, actually Michelle was already dead. But I got the call. I was at my friend's house. My husband called, and he said, Linda, he said, what I have to tell you will be the most difficult thing I will ever tell you in our life together. And my first thought was something had happened to his mother, because she was having serious problems with her thyroid and was so sick, actually, she was staying at our house. She was at our house, and I thought something had happened to Mom. But that is not what came out of his mouth. He said to me, he said, Lenny, he said, Michelle is dead. Ray shot her to death. I'm in a back bedroom with the parents of a young daughter whose room I'm in, my friends, and he had told them to please stay with me while I received what he was going to share. And they began to pray. They were praying. They were pastors. And they were praying. I was praying. It was really difficult for a split second. And I'm telling you, Angela, it was a split second. Because I, for all the years prior to that, had been building myself up in my most holy faith. I had been anchored in my relationship with God. I had spent decades at that point building that life with Him, and that's an important part of this story, because I don't think most people could do what I did, and I don't think God would require what actually He required. So my very first thought, truly, my very first thought was, I'm going home and I'm going to raise her from the dead. That was my first thought, really. And of course, I said that to Lee on the phone. I said, I'll be there, I'll be right there. Well, he thought, I certainly had just snapped, and the pastors that I was with certainly thought I had snapped, and they weren't going to let me leave the house. They just weren't going to let me leave, because they thought I was just in such total shock that wasn't going to happen. So I actually stayed there several more hours before I made the drive home.
So you make the drive from Port St. Lucie back up to Orlando, where Michelle, of course, now has been taken out of the crime scene, and her body is being taken care of. But the next morning, you had an amazing encounter with God. What happened?
That's the hit parade of this whole story. Let me tell you what happened. I couldn't sleep. I tried to sleep. I got home. Lee and his mother, Olive, her name was Olive, we just held each other and cried and tried to have some semblance of a moment together, and everybody went to bed. But I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I tossed, I turned. I finally got up, and I went into the kitchen. We live in a very small place, still live in a very small place, and Mom was asleep on the couch, and I couldn't turn the light on in the kitchen without waking her. We'd pulled out the sofa bed, and that's where she was sleeping. And so I was in the dark in the kitchen. Oh, this moment to this day is still. And God came into my kitchen, Angela. I mean, he came in. Did I see his face? No. Did I have any sense of what he looked like? Really, no. But this blinding brightness of holiness and pure love came in. And he asked me a couple of questions. The first, he said to me, he said, Linda, I don't want you to be angry. I want you to be grateful, for I have delivered Michelle from much. And then he said, I want you to forgive Ray. I want you to forgive him. And I was a minister. You're a minister. I mean, we're ministers. What do ministers teach? We teach you have to forgive. And so I really didn't have a whole lot of problem with that, but my mindset was, yeah, I'm going to forgive him, but that's the end of that. You know, I'm just going to let that go. But that's not how that ended. I opened my mouth and I said, yes, I will. I will forgive him. And this abundant grace came. I can't even describe the grace. I can't describe it. It's a river of extravagant grace that came into my kitchen, came into my being, came into every cell in my body. And I was basking in that. I was truly basking in that. And the moment I was just about ready to, this is good, the Lord came back and he asked me something else. He said, Linda, I want you to embrace Ray as a son. Well, I would love to tell you I was this wonderful woman of God that says, oh, yeah, I'll do that right away. Yes, sir. Anything you say, I say yes. Well, that's not what happened at all. I really battled with that. I really struggled with that. I battled with that. But at the end of several minutes, I said to him, I didn't say anything for a while, but at the end of several minutes, I stood there in the kitchen in the pitch black dark, and I said, I don't know how, I don't know where to begin, but I trust you, and I say, yes, I will embrace this man as my son. There's a picture of Ray and myself today. We are now ministering together, which is a part of the wonderful story of how God turned this whole thing around.
Before we get to that, though, Ray goes to his trial, tried for murder. What did you do at that trial? How did you handle it?
Actually, he didn't go to trial. He was offered a plea bargain, and the plea bargain was really no plea bargain. The plea bargain was death or life without parole. Those were the two choices. And so he was offered that. And they called me in, the court called me in because of the victims advocate law in the state of Florida. Victims or survivors of victims can have a say at that point. And they called me because I was the survivor of the situation, and they asked me which of the two I wanted. And we were on a conference call, a couple of attorneys, a judge. We were on a conference call, and I said I didn't want either. I wanted neither one. And they came back and said what they'd said before, thinking I just didn't understand the question. But I said, no, I don't want either one. I want him to pay for this crime, but I want him to have an eligibility for parole. And they said that is not available in the state of Florida. First-degree premeditated murder, which is what he was charged with, is only punishable by death or by life without parole. There is no other option. And I said, well, you'll have to find another option. And they were so frustrated with me. I can remember the frustration on the phone, and they all hung up and said they'd call me back. Well, fast forward, what happened is they changed the charge. They changed the charge. They changed the charge to second-degree murder with a firearm and gave Ray 37 years of prison time.
Right. How many of those, because he's now free?
Yes.
He's paid for his crime according to the law. And how many years was he in prison?
A little less than 24. Just slightly less than 24 years, yes.
While he was in prison, did Ray have any chance for reconciliation with God or redemption? How did he meet Jesus?
That's the most precious story. He was in isolation, and a prisoner in a cell adjacent to him, talking to him under a crack in the door, offered him a Bible. And he said, I don't want a Bible. I don't want anything to do with the Bible. And they were talking back and forth, and this other prisoner was getting ready to be released into the general population. And Ray says something in his heart said, "Take that Bible." And so the man was getting ready, the other inmate was getting ready to be released to general population, and he said, "Well, before you go, can I have that Bible?" And the inmate asked the corrections officer if he could have the Bible, and he agreed. And so this man, whether by intent on the inmate's part or not, I know it's God's intent, he opened the Bible flat because it wouldn't fit under the crack between the two cells unless it was opened, and he opened it to Psalm 91. And Ray
Oh
took the
my.
Bible. Ray took the Bible, picked it up, and the very first thing he ever read in a Bible ever was Psalm 91. And he was so overwhelmed and so overjoyed and so overtaken by what he had read that he started reading in Genesis. And he tells the story that he finally found Jesus in the book of Job. He got from Genesis to Job. And when he found what Job went through, he saw himself. And he realized that God was real for him too. And he accepted him as Lord.
My goodness. Linda, we only have about 7 minutes left, and I want us to spend a couple of minutes to pray for people because I believe this story is not only going to help a lot of people just be set free, but it's going to be triggering a number of families, survivors, those who have gone through difficult things, and they may be saying, "Linda, that's great for you, but I'm not sure that's a pill I can swallow." Yet I would say that your path was you following the biblical definition of forgiveness. How would you describe a biblical definition of forgiveness?
I often tell people, Angela, they need to just get rid of that word forgiveness because it seems too big to swallow, and think of instead the word release. Because what biblical forgiveness is releasing another of obligation due to you. It sets that out of your life and between them and God. And when you look at it from that perspective, it's a little easier to see that you don't have to be involved in the offender's life. I say oftentimes, I'm often asked, is that what I'm going to have to expect if I forgive my ex-husband who beat me brutally every day of my life? No, absolutely not.
Right.
No. God, that was a very definite set of circumstances for a plan and purpose God had. And He had equipped and prepared me to do that decades earlier. But you do have to let go. You have to let go of the offense, whatever it happens to be, whoever's hurt you, wounded you, lied about you, cheated you, abandoned you, you do have to let go. You do have to release. And when you release, I promise you, the same grace that God gave me, that I call it the river of grace, this extravagant river of grace, it comes and enables you to walk through what you need to walk through to make that as right as you need to make it. Not always the same in every circumstance, are very different, actually.
Earlier, you had mentioned that the Lord had asked you to take Ray as a son. It's a big request. Did you keep your promise? How have you done that?
I have done that. I have done that. Initially, I met Ray's mother after he had been incarcerated. She lived in Massachusetts. She came here to visit him, and we met. And through her, I developed a relationship with her that I maintained all the days of her life. I stayed in contact with her. I actually went to Boston when she was dying to be by her bedside because Ray couldn't be there. I went there to be him sort of with skin on. And she gave me contact information on how to reach Ray, and so I began to write to him in prison, and we started basically a writing relationship for several years.
Pen pals.
Yeah, several years. He didn't answer my first several letters at all, didn't even acknowledge them. But after a while, he began to write back. And then, of course, he was talking to his mother as well, and she and I were talking, so he was getting much more comfortable with the fact that, you know, maybe this is really a real deal. And then ultimately we started having a regularly scheduled phone call, and we would talk every week the whole time he was incarcerated.
And he, of course, is out now and
Yes.
building a new life, and you have embraced him. Matter of fact, we have a picture of the fact you and Your husband, there you are with Ray.
Hmm.
God bless you. His arm around you like it would be a mom. And there you are with your precious husband, Lee. Hello, Lee.
Yes,
And
yes.
that was this past Christmas.
This is not past Christmas. This happens to
Oh,
be at the Billy Graham Library. That's the Billy Graham Childhood Home. We had gone to do some television taping together, and we took him to the Billy Graham event there, and oh, he loved that. He just so related to Billy Graham. So that's the three of us there, yeah. And Lee didn't come along board real quick. My husband, it took over 12 years for him to jump on board. He just sort of kept thinking this Linda thing's going to go away with Ray. It's just going to go away. It's just going to go away. Yeah, there's Ray in front of the Billy Graham Library. And that's something, he loved being there. He was very impacted by that whole visit.
mm. Friends, you're joining us today on what could be easily a 2-hour conversation. And maybe, Linda, you'll come back and we can pick up on some other things that are in your story and what you could share with us. But I tell you, if you want to know more, this is Linda's book. It's called I Find No Fault. You can get it on Amazon and Christian bookstores. I would encourage each of you to get it. It's very uniquely laid out. It's Linda sharing her side of the story, and Ray is sharing his story. And then Linda goes into a wonderful set of teachings on forgiveness. Anyone who is struggling, I think this story would inspire you. The Lord is not going to ask us to do another man's journey. So I don't think God's asking that, but he does ask for all of us to forgive as you've been forgiven. Forgive us today, Lord, as we forgive those who've trespassed against us. And
Right.
it's a work of grace in our lives, and it's not easy, but there is a blessing and a reward, and it's a chance for freedom. Linda, we have 2 minutes left. I'm going to ask you to pray, just as the Spirit's leading you for our precious friends who are watching.
I would love to do that. That's one of the things I enjoy doing most. I love stewarding this message of forgiveness because what it does is it brings life. I know it firsthand. So, Father, in the name of Jesus, I do pray today for all of our viewers. I'm asking you, oh holy God, in the name of Jesus Christ, your holy and precious Son, that, Father, you go right to the hurt of everyone listening right now, everyone watching that has this wound, this offense, this raw spot, this weeping, sad spot, this sorrowful spot. I'm asking, Father, by your grace and by your mercy, that you go straight into that place, and that, Father, they hear the message. Just let go. Just say to the Lord, I'm asking you, say to him, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. That's exactly what I said. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I choose to obey you. I choose to do what you've asked me to do. I choose to agree with you. I give it to you. And by doing that, you will step over into a whole new place of grace. Father, enable them. Draw them by your Spirit as only you can. Speak life to them, I pray. Give them what they need to be free. In Jesus' name, amen.
Lord, give us what we need to be free.
Yes.
Just say that, friend. Just say, Lord, give me what I need to be free.
Free.
Yeah, in Jesus' name. Well, our guest is Linda Markowitz. Her story is powerful. It's transforming. It's of the grace of God. And I encourage you to get her book, I Find No Fault. It will be very, very helpful and inspirational. And also, you can invite her. Just contact her at lindamarkowitz.com. She is now beginning to travel and share the story, and it's a story that needs to be told. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. God bless you.
Thank you, Angela.
Love you.